Writing philosophy for pop culture, majestic vision. Pop culture writing tips for philosophers. When it comes to writing a philosophy paper that will be read by pop culture, there are a few key things to keep in mind. First, remember that your audience is likely not familiar with academic jargon and concepts. So, make sure to explain things clearly and concisely. Second, pop culture audiences are often more interested in stories and examples than in dense theoretical arguments. As such, it can be helpful to focus on concrete examples to illustrate your points. Finally, don't forget the basics of good writing. Make sure your paper is well organized, with a clear structure and logical flow. By following these tips, you can ensure that your philosophy paper will be accessible and enjoyable for pop culture audiences. Below are 9 key tips to keep in mind while writing philosophically oriented articles intended for general audiences. If you want to keep your philosophy writing concise, use short sentences. This will help your reader follow your argument more easily, and it will also make your writing pop. Of course, there are times when you'll need to use longer sentences. But in general, shorter is better. So don't be afraid to break up your thoughts into smaller chunks. It'll make a big difference in how readable and enjoyable your writing is. If you want to make your philosophy writing more understandable to a wider audience, consider using common phrases and idioms. This will help to make your work more relatable and accessible. Here are some directions for using common phrases in your writing. By using these tips, you can make your philosophy writing more understandable to a wider audience. Adjectives versus data. Data is a set of values of a particular type that are often grouped together. Adjectives are words that describe or modify another person or thing in the sentence. An adjective is a word that modifies a noun or pronoun. It typically describes the quality of the noun or pronoun. When you replace adjectives with data, you are making the sentence more specific and easier to understand. In pop culture, we often use data to make things more relatable. But if they said they were feeling 0.2 on the color wheel, it wouldn't have the same emotional impact. Similarly, in academic philosophy, data can be used to make complex ideas more understandable. For example, the philosopher John Rawls is known for his theory of justice. But if you replace the word justice with the distribution of resources in a society, it would be much easier to understand what he was talking about. So, when you're writing, try to replace adjectives with data. It will make your writing more specific and easier to understand. What do you think? Is this a good way to make philosophy more accessible, or does it lose something in the translation? Bold words. Having trouble writing an article that will be both pop-friendly and academic? Many philosophers have the same problem. The key is to eliminate boring and weak words from your writing. Here are some tips. Use strong verbs. Be concise. Be specific. Use active voice. Avoid cliches. By following these tips, you can write an article that is both pop-friendly and academic. There's a lot of pop philosophy out there. You know the kind: big ideas, catchy phrases, and sweeping statements that make you feel deep and insightful. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself, so what? It's a valid question, and one that we should all be asking more often. Just because something sounds profound doesn't mean it actually is. And if we're not careful, we can end up believing things that are actually pretty superficial. So next time you come across a piece of pop philosophy, take a step back and ask yourself, what does this actually mean? What implications does it have for my life? And most importantly, so what? You might be surprised at how often you can't answer those questions. But that's okay. It's good to challenge our beliefs and think critically about the ideas we encounter. So next time you're faced with a philosophical conundrum, don't be afraid to ask the tough questions. After all, that's what philosophy is all about. Does pop philosophy provide value? That's a tough question to answer. On the one hand, pop philosophy can be a fun way to explore big ideas and expand our horizons. It can be a great way to learn about new concepts and think about things in a new way. But on the other hand, pop philosophy can also be pretty shallow. A lot of times, it doesn't really go anywhere. It's just a lot of empty talk without any real substance. And in the end, it doesn't really provide much value. So what do you think? Does pop philosophy provide value? Or is it mostly just hot air? When writing for pop culture, it is important to avoid adverbs. Adverbs are words that modify verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs. They can change the meaning of a sentence and make it difficult to understand what is being said. Objectivity in pop. Objectivity refers to the state of being unbiased. When you are objective, you do not allow your personal opinions to interfere with your writing. Instead, you focus on presenting the facts in an accurate and unbiased way. This can be difficult, but it is important to remain impartial when writing about or for pop culture. This means avoiding any partisan bias or personal opinion. Instead, focus on presenting the facts in an unbiased way. Acronyms or jargon. When you're writing, it's important to be relatable and appealing. This means avoiding the use of acronyms or jargon. Both can be confusing for your reader and cause them to lose interest in what you're saying. Acronyms are abbreviations that are made up of the initial letters of a series of words. It is often used to make complex ideas more accessible to those who are familiar with the subject matter. SVO convention in philosophy copy. When it comes to writing, there is no one right way to do things. However, there are certain conventions that are generally accepted as being of good practices. One of these is the use of subject-verb-object (SVO) structure in sentences. The subject-verb-object structure is simply a way of ordering the elements of a sentence so that the subject, the thing or person doing the action, comes first, followed by the verb, the action being done, and then the object, the thing or person on which the action is being done. Conclusions. If you're a philosopher, becoming a better writer is a great way to expand your skill set. Not only will it help you communicate your ideas more clearly, but it can also make you more marketable in the job market. There are a few different areas where pop philosophy and academic philosophy intersect. For example, both types of philosophy rely heavily on argumentation and critical thinking. As such, honing your writing skills can help you in both areas. In addition, many employers value strong writing skills. If you're looking to enter or advance in the corporate world, being a great writer can give you a significant leg up. Finally, grammar is important. This may seem like an obvious point, but it bears repeating. If you want to be taken seriously as a philosopher, it's important to use proper grammar and punctuation in your writing. While there are always exceptions to the rule, in general, taking the time to ensure that your writing is clear and error-free will go a long way in making a good impression on potential employers or readers. So, if you're a philosopher who's looking to improve your skill set, becoming a better writer is a great place to start. By honing your writing skills, you'll be able to communicate your ideas more clearly and effectively, and you may also find yourself with more job opportunities.